Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you all. Call the meeting to order. Call the roll, please.
Superintendent Chaudhary
He's
absent. Secretary Churchill.
Good morning. Present.
Miss Eberhardt.
Present.
Mr. Gibbons is present. Miss Lala.
Present.
Present.
Mr. Lombardo is absent. Secretary McCord
Present.
and Chair Casemeyer.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Before we begin, I just want to mention that Superintendent Chaudhary and his wife had a blessed event Monday. A new baby was born and everybody's okay. Actually, I forgot to ask what sex, but everybody's okay in the family. So we want to announce that congratulatory comment. Any revisions to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair, under the consent agenda, item number 1E needs to be pulled, and we'll try to bring that back next month.
Okay. Any public comments?
No public comment, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Bob, you want to go through this consent agenda, please?
Sure, Mr. Chair. So we've got the approval of the minutes is item 1A. The summary contract award is all of the contracts that we have processed in the last month. And we've got Roland Park. Let's see. Then we've got item C is project allocation reversions. These are projects that have completed that have some balances. Those will go back to the Baltimore City in this case. And we've got on item 1D project closeouts. These are the various projects that we've been able to financially close out throughout the state. Have a whole bunch of them from Baltimore City that were backlogged. And Grissel has been working with the city and has worked through those. So that's we're real happy about that. The last one was 1E, which we've pulled from the agenda, which is the Deer Park Elementary School site approval.
Any questions about the consent agenda? Your motion that we approve? Okay, Ms. Eberhardt, second. Secretary McCord, Mr. Gibbons. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Let's move to the Baltimore City Healthy School Fund approval. Grissel? Morning.
Good morning, Chair Casemeyer and members of the Commission. My name is Grissel Munoz, and I am the Regional Facilities Manager for Baltimore City.
Good to see you.
The IAC is responsible for administering the Healthy Schools Facility Fund by providing grants to public schools to improve the health of school facilities. The IAC has a total of $100 million available allocation, most of which has been allocated in the November IAC meeting. However, a special provision in the statute set aside 50% of available healthy school funds for Baltimore City and has allowed for a separate application process, which is why you are seeing these two additional requests today. Today, we ask the Commission to consider approving the IAC staff recommendations for two projects submitted by Baltimore City Public School System for the Wolf Street Academy building. The roof project is to replace 11,400 square foot of built-up roof with a new TPO roof. There are currently leaks in the roof compromising the learning environment of the students. This roof was last replaced in 2000 and has reached its life expectancy. The current funding request is $552,000. For the HVAC project, the majority of the HVAC equipment in the building has exceeded its normal use of life, originally from the 1976 construction, and some rooftop units that were replaced back in 2000. Controls have been malfunctioning and have created hot and cold spots throughout the school. The current funding request is for $1,632,000. To date, the IAC has approved a total of $47,598,600 in funds to city schools for a total of 17 projects regarding HVAC, roof, and window replacements, which leaves a remaining balance of $2,401,000 and $400,000. This motion is to approve the Baltimore City Public School System fiscal year 21 reserve appropriations, and fiscal year 22 Healthy School Facility Fund requests totaling in $2,184,000 for the Wolf Street Academy HVAC and roof project as listed above, in accordance with Education Article Section 5.
Thank you, Griselle. Any questions for Griselle? Okay, do I hear a motion? State the motion again, Griselle, please.
The motion is to approve Baltimore City Public Schools System FY21 Reserve Appropriation and FY22 Healthy School Facility Fund request totaling in $2,184,000 for the two projects for Wolf Street Academy.
Someone make a motion, please. That we approve. Ms. Eberhardt, second. Mr. Gibbons. All in favor, say aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Bob, I'm just thinking about it. I asked you the other day, there's no school in Baltimore City that doesn't have heat. Is that correct? Unless
Yeah.
it's some temporary malfunction.
Yes, that's correct. There aren't any schools, and Baltimore City, 2 years ago, they have installed citywide monitoring equipment, and they monitor it from a central location. So they get an early warning if there's something wrong at one of the schools, which allows them to act proactively. And it's worked out quite well. Occasionally they do close a school, but it doesn't turn into, like they had several years back, frozen pipes and things that cause a school to go out of service for days or weeks.
Okay.
So they've done a good job managing that.
Okay, HVAC project status report. Jamie?
Thank you, Chair Casemeyer, members of the commission. Before you to deliver item 3, an informational item, a status report on the extra $15 million for HVAC projects in Baltimore City, and to stand for questions. The report is of January 26, 2022. Currently, we have 16 of 19 projects operational. That is 84%. 2 are under construction and 1 is in design. Of those 3 projects that are not operational, 3 of them are behind more than 2 months. The exception report shows Callaway Elementary. The design process has been on hold until final work scopes and cost estimates for higher priority extra $15 million projects were finalized. And once the design process was restarted, additional investigations and equipment failures have warranted an expanded work scope, from replacement of air handlers to a full HVAC replacement. The design process is now near complete, with construction to start in the summer. As for Thomas Johnson Elementary and Windsor Hills Elementary Middle, both are more than 2 months behind. Construction has been on hold until equipment could be delivered, and equipment has arrived, with construction to restart and to be completed in the summer. For contract status, we have 100% of the $15 million allocated, 90% or $13.5 million of the $15 million contracted, and $11.396 million expended. That is 76%. This concludes the status report, which is the last extra $15 million for HVAC status report that I will deliver to this commission. Griselle, the RFM for Baltimore City, will deliver the report from now on. You will not miss me, because she is great, and because I will still be here. I am the manager of planning, and we have a lot of planning to do in the future. Before I stand for questions on the report, I do want to mention it has been a real pleasure to deliver the report to you all each month, give or take, for the last 36 months. You read the reports, you dive into them, and you ask hard questions, and I think we are all better for that. So thank you. I will now stand for questions.
Thank you, Jamie. You've done a great job. It's been a pleasure to listen to you with your updates. So we appreciate your work. Any questions for Jamie? Secretary Churchill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jamie, again, congratulations on your new role, and it has been a pleasure to hear all about your reporting on these schools. My only question, I certainly understand all the supply chain issues that are out there, and it's it's challenging to get projects done today. Just on Callaway, once the project gets started, is this a 12-month project? Or is the Callaway School going to be projected to go into 2023 before it's
It is a full HVAC replacement. I do not know for sure, but I would expect the construction will continue through the end of the summer and be phased so that the school will be fully operational during the school year and be completed in the following summer. But I will follow up on that.
Yeah,
sure. I look forward to future updates. So thank you for the report.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, we'll get that information in Gracel and report it out next meeting.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to item 4, Built to Learn approvals and revisions. Arabia and Brett.
Yes, good morning. In compliance with the Built to Learn Act of 2020, the Maryland Stadium Authority is authorized to sell revenue bonds to fund school construction projects approved on a rolling basis by this commission. For this round of recommendations, the IAC will be asked to approve 5 additional projects totaling $100,022,000, as shown on page 24. These projects have been thoroughly evaluated and recommendations are based on project readiness, cash flow schedules, and approved educational specifications. For clarification purposes, the estimated maximum state share of eligible construction costs is based on the IAC's calculation worksheets. The adjusted maximum state funding allocation is based on the funding levels being requested by the local education agencies, LEAs. Should the IAC approve the recommendations, the number of approved BTL projects will increase to 27, thereby increasing the state share to $696 million. In addition, staff are also requesting your approval to revise 4 previously approved projects, which are shown in a chart on page 25. 3 of these revisions are based on revised budgets submitted by Montgomery County that now include prevailing wage costs. Another revision being recommended is to modify the estimated maximum state share of eligible construction costs for Mardella Middle High School renovation addition project in Wicomico County, based on new information that supports a higher enrollment number. This change increases the state share from $47 million to $52 million. The final revision is to accurately show the eligible maximum BTL allocation for Mardella, which was previously shown at the maximum funding level when the figure should have been $13.8 million. As such, the bulk of funding for this project will be provided through annual capital improvement program allocations. For your convenience, we have attached the computation worksheets used to calculate the state share of the BTL projects. The worksheets continue to be provided to MSA and serve as the official record of funding approvals. Through the Act, 2 counties with a 50% state share are eligible for additional gross square footage up to 150% above the gross area baseline, which applies to Anne Arundel and Montgomery counties. It's anticipated that the next round of BTL project recommendations will occur in the next month or 2. I would like to invite Brett and Fred to assist with responding to any technical questions that you may have prior to the reading of the motion.
Thank you, Arabia. Very clear. Any questions for staff about the proposal? Want to state the motion, Arabia?
Yes. The motion is to approve projects and revisions to previously approved projects as presented to be funded and executed through the Built to Learn Act. New allocations are estimated to total $100,022,000, and total revised allocations to date are estimated to total approximately $73,701,008. Final funding amounts are subject to adjustment based upon finalization of project worksheets and review of project eligibility.
Any further questions before we take a motion? Okay, do I hear a motion of, Mr. Gibbons. You're on mute, okay.
Just on the previous approvals, is the difference between the previous and new, is that purely prevailing wage adjustment?
So for Montgomery County, that is prevailing wage adjustments, yes. And also we're, the Mardella is the other change.
And that was enrollment.
Yes, enrollment and a correction to the BTL allocation.
That's a large change. It's a large increase based on that.
Yeah, what's the number again, Arabia, from Montgomery? Because of prevailing wage?
Well, it's 3 projects, Burnt Mill, South Lake, and Woodland. So that's almost close to 60. I can't tell you what the difference is.
Okay.
It looks like $14 million. If you just the differential between the previous and,
okay.
And the
okay.
Any other questions, Arabia?
Brett
or Fred? Okay, do I hear a motion we approve of Arabia's report?
So moved, Gloria Lawler.
Second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, Arabia, thank you very much for you and your team.
And Mr. Chair, if I could, I want to point the members back to the informational item if they want to ever go back and look at it. This is the status report that we'll put in information every month, every quarter. We'll read it out for questions, but this is on the Built to Learn projects. We'll keep them up to date, and we'll take any questions from any of the members throughout the month.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item 5, Cecil County Public Schools Amendment, Bohemia Manor Middle and High School. Arabia?
Yes, sir. Throughout the state, bids are coming in higher than anticipated due to the rising costs and materials and delays with delivery time. The Bohemia Manor Chiller Project approved in FY 2020.
Wait a minute. Somebody's not muted. We hear some background noise. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the Bohemia Manor Chiller Project approved in the FY 2022 CIP is no exception. To offset the unexpected costs, Cecil County would like to apply $50,310 from their prior year appropriations account and are committed to covering any additional expenses that may arise. We are working with each LEA closely to ensure that their project needs are met, and we anticipate that they will bring additional project cost increases to future IAC meetings. Because of the fluctuating nature of construction pricing, we are encouraging every LEA to have bids in hand before they request an increase to a project allocation so that we can allocate the right amount of funding. In addition, we are closely monitoring the project cost and doing everything we can to support the LEAs as they navigate this difficult climate. For this project, as shown in the table on page 35, the LEA is seeking IAC approval to increase the previously approved allocation from $330,000 to $383,310. Staff is in support of the funding adjustments to the state share of this project. I would like to invite Brett and Fred to address any technical questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions about this project? You want to state the motion, Arabia?
Yes. The motion is to adjust the approved state CIP maximum state funding allocation for the Bohemia Manor Middle High School chiller replacement project by applying $50,310 from the LEA's reserved appropriations account.
Hear a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second?
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Okay, item 6, Somerset County Public Schools, Greenwood Elementary. Arabia, you're up again.
Yes, sir. Very similar to the previous motion, Somerset County is requesting an amendment to the FY 2022 CIP project allocation for the Greenwood Elementary School building envelope project due to the bids coming in higher than anticipated because of the increased cost of materials. To offset the unexpected difference, Somerset County has requested IAC approval to transfer $117,237 from the statewide reserved appropriations account. As shown in the table below, the original project allocation will change from $647,000 to $764,000. Staff supports the LEA's request to adjust the funding. Our technical experts, Brett and Fred, are available to address your questions.
Thank you. Any questions about this issue? Let's state the motion, Arabia.
Yes. The motion is to approve an amendment to the Somerset County Public Schools FY 2022 CIP project allocations and to decrease the statewide reserved account by $117,237 and apply $117,237 from the statewide reserved account to the Greenwood Building Envelope Project, thereby increasing the allocation from $647,237 to $764,474.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion? Ms. Everhart, second. Secretary McCord. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you, Brett and Fred, too, for being there. Okay, item number 7. Arabia, you're busy today. The
Yes.
FY 23 Capital Improvement Program, 90% recommendation. Bob, you want to give us a little background or somebody on what we're doing here now?
Yeah, this is our annual CIP program, which is different from the Built to Learn. The CIP program comes annually. The Built to Learn is on a rolling basis as we bring the projects to you. The legislature set this up by law so that we can only do partially approvals, and that gives the legislature freedom to make changes in the budget. This is the 90% approval, and it doesn't differ much from the earlier approvals that we have made. We've tried to give a heads up to all the LEAs which projects that we're going to approve all the way through and partially fund them with approvals till we get to the end so that they can work with their counties, get the local matches moving, keep their designs going. And it gives them that clear vision of where they're going and which projects allows us to deliver the projects and them to deliver the projects faster. This is the 90%. It's the last one before May. May is, of course, after the legislative session. We'll know that the other 10 will be there, the other 10%. It has happened previously that it wasn't. And there have been a few changes from the last recommendation.
So this is 90% of what number?
90% of the budget. And the budget was increased, which was welcome. We're now at about $285 million for the state. We were below that, if you recall. And so we were able to add a few more projects from the last round.
Okay. Arabia.
Mr. Chair, before I begin, I would like to make a note that a correction is needed for the motion for this item, as the dollar amount the IAC is being asked to adopt is currently shown as $252 million. However, the correct figure should be $256.5 million.
Okay.
This figure represents an increase from what was previously presented during the December round of approvals, and is based on the governor's anticipated public school construction budget of $285.5 million. The recommended allocations this year are characterized by two notable aspects that bear mentioning. The first is that the proposed allocations are not expected to fully exhaust the $95.3 million expected to be provided through the Supplemental Capital Grant Program, also known as the Enrollment Growth and Relocatable Classroom Initiative, or EGRC. Due to a legislative change in the Built to Learn Act, the $55.3 million above the $40 million that was originally anticipated has been calculated based on each eligible county board's proportionate share of the percentage of enrollment growth above the statewide average. With the increase in new authorization and availability of prior year appropriations, it is anticipated that at least $56.5 million from the Supplemental Capital Grant Program will not be allocated this fiscal year and will instead be held for allocation in fiscal year 2024. To help these funds be applied to facility needs as quickly as possible, the IAC's regional facility managers are beginning to have discussions with local education agencies to identify BTL projects that could potentially utilize some or all of these EGRC funds to cover costs associated with early planning and design. The second notable aspect that's a significant amount of the CIP funding to be allocated in fiscal 2023 is not expected to be spent within the fiscal year. As a general rule, the IAC only allocates funding that is expected to be used in the fiscal year for which it was allotted. This year, however, because the amount of funding currently available exceeds the scope of the projects that have demonstrated design progress significant enough to achieve any funding expenditures in fiscal year 2023. The recommendations being presented include allocations to projects that are not expected to be used until fiscal year 2024. I would like to pause here and invite Brett to walk you through the IAC's preliminary analysis beginning on page 39 of the agenda. Brett?
Thank you, Arabia. The IAC strives in all of its programs to understand project cash flows and allocate funds for projects that will be able to use the funding in that fiscal year. Construction funding loses value at a rate of approximately 5% per year on average. Consequently, allowing funds to sit unused results in both a loss of purchasing power as well as a significant opportunity cost because that funding is not being put to use in the immediate term to address existing facility issues that are affecting Maryland students. Nevertheless, due to the funding proposed in the governor's fiscal year 2023 budget, coupled with large infusions of funding through programs such as Built to Learn Act program, the Healthy Schools Facilities Fund, the anticipated available fiscal year 2023 funding exceeds fiscal year 2023 project cash flow needs by nearly $153 million. The difference between the amounts requested by LEAs for fiscal year 2023 and what the submitted cash flow needs show in fiscal 2023 can be partly explained by the LEA's current practice of requesting full funding in one fiscal year for summer systemic renovation projects, which begin in the final months of that fiscal year, but are substantially executed during the first few months of the following fiscal year. The spending of the balance for those summer systemic projects are included in the figures shown in Table 3 for Quarter 1 and Quarter 2 of fiscal year 2024. The summer systemic projects account for less than $102 million of the nearly $153 million in funds that, based upon draw schedules, will not be spent in fiscal year 2023. As a result, at least $50 million in fiscal year 2023 CIP funds will likely sit on the shelf for at least 18 months before being spent on construction. The LEAs are required to provide a draw schedule document for each project included in their CIP submission. These documents are used to track the LEA's expected spending for that project. Typically, staff uses these documents to validate the amount of funding that the LEA is projecting to need from the state for that fiscal year. Projects whose cash flows were not submitted were estimated by IAC staff based upon the information submitted by the LEA and were appropriate using a standard project bell curve. I want to emphasize that the information we have presented here is based upon staff analysis and the information provided by the LEAs in October. Updated draw schedules will be solicited from the LEAs, and an updated report on cash flow needs will be presented to the IAC at the March IAC meeting. If the projected amount of funding is approved in the fiscal year 2023 budget and the recommendations are adopted by the IAC as presented, this year 18 LEAs will receive full funding allocations for all their prepared projects, either through the Capital Improvement Program, Built to Learn Act, or the Healthy Schools Facilities Fund. This year, 2 LEAs did not submit any project requests. Many LEAs this year will be able to execute systemic renovation projects that have been requested for a number of years in a row, but were never able to receive funding. I'm now available for questions.
That's a lot, Brett. Thank you.
Yep.
Questions for Brett or Arabia or Fred? So Arabia, I have one question. So this $95 million that was put in for EGRC, did you say $56 million won't be able to be utilized?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, could I make a point? It can't be utilized as quickly as we would like. It's a throughput issue. The projects, if everybody knew the money was coming 3 years ago, the planning and development of those projects could have occurred and it could be spent. So there's a delay. It's not like there's not a need because
No, it just won't be used this year.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
I will now turn it back over to Arabia to review the 90% CIP recommendation. Arabia?
Thank you, Brett. For this portion of the presentation, I'd like to focus on changes that were made after the December approvals that include increasing the target allocations to account for the anticipated $285 million public school construction program budget. The number of current and projected funding recommendations has increased. The funding the IAC is being asked to adopt today is shown in column G, which captures the modified preliminary public school construction budget at the 90% round for a total recommended amount of $256.5 million from new authorizations. Columns H and M are funding projections at the 100% round and are subject to change pending identification of additional funding and the adoption of the final capital budget numbers. Column N is the percentage of each LEA's total funding request projected to be submitted for approval. Column O is the percentage of each LEA's total funding request based on the funding projected to be available for allocation, which is currently shown in the bottom row as $433 million. One other note of importance is that the funding projections that are included in the agenda for your consideration and adoption include funding for Prince George's County Priority Number 4, Suitland High School. IAC staff and Heidi, our Assistant Attorney General, have reviewed the LEA's Construction Manager at Risk, CMR, and believe the construction services associated with the CMR contract to be ineligible for participation or reimbursement due to the LEA's failure to comply with the requirements of COMAR. We are, however, recommending the state participate in the cost of construction. This determination does not change the amount of funding the LEA is expected to receive for this project. Brett, Fred, and I are again available and stand for questions prior to the reading of the motion.
Okay, a lot of information. Are there any questions about any of the issues that were brought up? Suitland High School. Okay, Raby, you want to state the motion?
Yes, sir. The motion is to adopt the fiscal year 2023 90% capital improvement program IAC recommendations for each school system and the Maryland School for the Blind, totaling $256.5 million, as shown in the summary of project requests and recommendations, contingent upon resolution of outstanding issues for projects with a use status, and to provide the recommendations to the presiding officers, the budget committees of the General Assembly and the Department of Legislative Services.
Okay, any more questions before I ask for a motion? Someone want to make a motion on Arabia's proposal? Ms. Eberhardt, second. Secretary Churchill, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Well, I want to thank you, Arabia and Brett and Fred, for handling that. There's a lot of information. We appreciate your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 8, FY 2023 Capital Improvement Program Supplemental Information. Fred?
All right. Good morning, Chair Casemeyer and IAC members. This item is informational and does not require IAC action. With each year's CIP, we survey the school systems in 4 categories in which the IAC can differentiate among school systems to inform project reviews and determine one of the eligibility factors for a supplemental grant program. Those areas are air conditioning availability in classrooms, design and planning professionals on staff, open space instructional areas, and number of relocatable classrooms in use. When we first surveyed the school systems about air conditioning in 2004, only 78% of schools were air conditioned. Now it's 98%. When we began asking about the number of classrooms in 2020, there were 1,289 classrooms without air conditioning. Now there are 745, and that is expected to drop to 345 in 3 years. The 3 school systems remaining with classrooms without AC, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, and Garrett County, intend to address a significant portion of these facilities within 3 years. The number of design and planning professionals on staff is one measure of a school system's internal capacity to perform design reviews and manage complex projects. There are 48 design professionals on school system staffs. Baltimore, Montgomery, Anne Arundel, and Prince George's counties employ the most professionals. 7 school systems have no design professionals on staff. The member agencies of the IAC have 21 design professionals on staff, always available to provide technical assistance to the LEAs. Open space classrooms can present instructional challenges due to poor acoustical separation, particularly when relatively large classes are taught in adjacent spaces. There are a total of 117 schools statewide with open space classrooms. 22 of these are scheduled to be addressed within 3 years. The largest numbers are in Frederick County, Baltimore City, and Washington County. Where open space classrooms will remain, school systems have employed methods such as smaller class sizes or having teachers in adjoining spaces team teach to minimize the disruptions. Relocatable classrooms remain a useful and necessary tool for school systems to temporarily manage needs to house students due to enrollment challenges in certain areas or during construction projects. There are currently 2,872 relocatable classrooms in use for instruction, which is a small decline from last year. The highest usage numerically remains Prince George's and Montgomery County. The highest usage in terms of percentage of students remains Charles County. The average number of relocatables in use over the past 5 years is an eligibility factor for the capital grant program for local school systems with significant enrollment growth or relocatable classrooms, EGRC, funding. A 5-year average of 250 or more is the current eligibility standard. Prince George's, Montgomery, Baltimore, and Charles counties are eligible for this program in fiscal year 2023 based on their usage of relocatable classroom. Additional counties are eligible due to enrollment growth. Thank you, and I'll do my best to answer any questions.
Thank you, Fred. Very interesting. Any questions on Fred's comments? Appreciate it, Fred. Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to have one of our first legislative updates. Cassandra?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I am excited to present to you the first of several legislative updates you'll receive over the next few months. On pages 68 and 69 of your agenda, we've provided a listing as of last Thursday when the agenda was published of the legislation that the IAC is following so far this session. Of course, we're still early in session. So far, none of these bills has passed. We are seeing a couple of general themes that I wanted to talk about today. One is high performance and energy savings. A number of bills that we've seen modify the high performance requirements for schools. Currently, only new school construction is required to be built to high performance requirements. And as a result of the NOT Commission recommendations back in 2018, the high performance requirement for schools was modified to allow schools to meet the requirements by fulfilling LEED requirements, but without paying for the LEED certification. Most of the proposed changes that we're seeing in legislation would again require LEAs to pay for that LEED certification. And some would require even renovations or simple HVAC projects to meet high performance standards. Second theme that we're seeing is a few bills that modify the requirements for the use of fossil fuel heating and energy systems in school construction projects. One bill, for example, House Bill 365, is significant to the IAC because it names the IAC in the bill. It prohibits the IAC from paying for fossil fuel systems, including natural gas. So LEAs would be required to use a renewable energy system or to pay with local funds for their natural gas system. Other bills require the Department of Labor to adopt code changes that would prohibit the use of fossil fuel systems unless the LEA goes through a variance process that will be established by the Department of Labor. All of the information in the tracker is extracted directly from the General Assembly website, and we will continue to provide legislative updates at each meeting from now until at least May. With that, Mr. Chair, I can stand for questions.
Thank you, Cassandra. Any questions for Cassandra on proposed legislation? Secretary McCord.
Cassandra, I'm just wondering, has any legislators requested information from the IAC? And that might be an interesting thing to add to your reports in the future. So we know who's asking for what and what's been supplied to the General Assembly, so that we are not kind of caught off guard with this information has been provided to the General Assembly. Just a comment and a proposal, that's all.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. We'd be happy to provide that information.
Okay, thank you.
Do you get many calls from legislators about questions, Cassandra, in general?
We get a handful of requests, some from legislators. More often it's from members of the public or other stakeholders that are working with legislators. Bob can speak more specifically to the calls that he takes from legislators.
Okay.
We've received a few calls related to this year's legislation early on. One was what types of fuel sources are used in schools. For instance, there's one coal-fired elementary school that this particular legislature was interested in knowing. And then we try to provide back information to certain bills just as informational. I did provide a not in support or against 365, HB 365, to make it clear that 78% of the school's heating in the state is natural gas currently. So this would be a big switch to get them over existing facilities. I also mentioned that the use of natural gas would in fact double if we did that, because you have to produce the electricity at a remote site, and there's a loss of BTUs, and then you have to transmit it over power lines, and there's a loss of BTUs. So just wanted the legislative committee to know that information, and didn't say really anything more.
Are you asked to testify, or have you been asked yet?
No, I had not been asked yet. I signed up to provide information to the legislative committee that I thought was important that they recognize. It would be a big switch. There was clarification from one of our questions that the power doesn't have to be produced on site, because when we read the bill, it looked like that all the power would have to be produced on site, like with PV as a renewable source, which is almost impossible because you can't store the energy economically.
Yeah. No, I meant in general. Are you asked to testify much down in Annapolis?
I've not been asked once this year so far.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
One other thing that I'd like to note about some of these bills, Mr. Chair, something that we keep a close eye on is the effective date of the legislation. For example, one of the bills that we're talking about might require the IAC to look at the eligible costs in the FY 2023 CIP. So between the enactment of the bill and when the IAC does its approval in May, it could require some pretty significant changes if that effective date wasn't delayed.
Understand. Any, before we close, any comments about Cassandra's report or anything in general? Secretary Churchill.
I do not have a comment about the report. I look forward to seeing future updates on legislation. But Mr. Chair, I just wanted to have a note about a critical person in our organization that is leaving. Clarence Potter who is the chief of our public school construction program, will be departing General Services. This is his last IAC meeting.
Oh,
I wanted to wish him well. Clarence has been responsible for so many improvements that our program has been able to stand up in terms of our interaction and responsiveness with all the LEAs. And he will be leaving General Services to take a critical job in another noteworthy and critical institution in Baltimore City. So we wish him the best of luck, and thank you for the moment.
well, thank you. Add our congratulations to Clarence. And, you know, a lot of agencies depend on people who don't get a lot of notoriety, but they're very, very important to what we all do. Maybe, any time that you all have any thoughts about ways you think we can improve the meetings or features we could add to the meeting that you've thought about, please let me know. We're open to ideas. I think we want to have people be more aware of the IAC and that we're user friendly, and we're always seeking ways to promote that. So if you have any thoughts, let me know. Okay, do we hear a motion that we adjourn? Hart. Churchill seconds. Okay.
Second.
All in favor of we adjourn, say aye.
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 You'll have a good month.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, members.